Hey, it's your guy Tyrrell back with the interviews. In today's video, we're going to look at the key tactical themes that helped Brazil defeat Venezuela 1-0 in World Cup qualifying. When we break it all down and we do look at the board, we have Brazil in a 4-3-3, and Venezuela also adopted that same system. But what we ended up seeing was that because Brazil dominated majority of the possession, they were in the 4-3-3, pegging back Venezuela into more of a 4-5-1. So when we break down this game, we're going to focus on how Brazil were able to find a breakthrough, and it starts with their system because they are in a 4-3-3, and what we should see is in that midfield battle, it should see Douglas Luiz against Moreno and Everton Ribeiro against Caceres. Up front for Brazil, you had Richarlison occupying the center backs, with Firmino adopting a narrow position ahead of Rosales and Osorio, and then you had Gabriel Jesus hugging the touchline to pull out Feltscher. That creates space out on that left-hand side for Lodi to push forward, and ultimately Brazil were playing in more of a 3-2-5, with Danilo holding a narrow position, which does pull out Soteldo, and Lodi pushing forward beyond Machis to ensure that Brazil have 5 attacking players up front. You have Lodi and Gabriel Jesus providing the width. You got Firmino dropping off into pockets of space behind Machis and Moreno and just ahead of Rosales and Osorio. And you saw Everton Ribeiro pushing beyond Caceres to pull into that gap ahead of Angel and Feltscher. So when you look at Brazil's shape, you have Danilo covering space for Gabriel Jesus, and over on that left-hand side, you would see Douglas Luiz dropping off deeper into the half space to ensure that if Brazil did lose possession, they wouldn't be bypassed down that flank into space behind Lodi. And it was down Brazil's left-hand side where they caused most of their damage. What you ended up seeing is that with Firmino looking to drift into more central positions, he would pull Rosales into a more narrow position, and Firmino's movement created space for Lodi to push forward to provide a legitimate threat down that left-hand side with his crossing. This forced Machis to drop off deeper to track that movement, and when he did, you would often see Venezuela shifted into more of a 5-4-1. Firmino was also capable of dropping deeper off of Osorio and Rosales to receive the ball between Machis and Moreno, or Moreno and Rincon. And when he started in those deeper positions, what you often saw was Firmino looking to sprint forward into that gap between Rosales and Osorio. And whenever Thiago Silva or Allan did get on the ball, rather than looking to play in Firmino, they often reverted for the safer pass. When we initially looked to Lodi and Firmino's impact on that left-hand side, we witnessed Thiago Silva stepping into Venezuela's half, and what you see ahead of him is Everton Ribeiro running off Caceres into the gap between Angel and Feltscher, Lodi in an advanced position beyond Machis, with Douglas Luiz covering for him, and Richarlison pulling out Osorio while Firmino begins his run across Rosales. That's when you see Thiago Silva bypass Rincon and split Machis and Moreno for Lodi, and Firmino's running narrow to drag Rosales central. And when Lodi receives that ball, he does identify Firmino making a run towards the front post, but when that cross is delivered, Osorio is able to clear it. When we look to another example, it's Douglas Luiz stepping into Venezuela's half that ends up pulling out Moreno, and you end up seeing Lodi already ahead of Machis and Firmino pulling out Rincon by dropping off into the midfield zone. This results in the ball being played back to Marquinhos, who then pushes forward into Venezuela's half, as you have Firmino asking for the ball ahead of a narrow Rosales and Osorio. However, Marquinhos locates Lodi pegging back Machis and ends up playing a long ball into the left channel for Lodi, and we end up seeing the left back side foot a first-time ball into the 6-yard box. A better ball would result in a Firmino tap-in, but Lodi's delivery is too close to the keeper, who pushes it beyond Firmino, darting between the center backs into the path of Richarlison, and although he does convert his chance, Firmino is caught in an offside position. There was a time where Marquinhos located Firmino darting between the Rosales and Osorio gap, and he ended up clipping the ball over Venezuela's midfield bank for Firmino, who ended up nodding it down into the path of Richarlison. The issue that Brazil encounter here is that Richarlison's first touch is poor, and by the time he's able to control the ball to break towards the Venezuela box, he's swarmed by the Venezuelan midfield trio, and they're covered by the 2 center backs at the edge of the box. If we look to another example, it's Douglas Luiz shifting laterally from the left touchline to pull out Moreno. Here we see Firmino occupying Rosales, Richarlison dropping off the center backs, and Lodi is beyond Machis once again. Douglas Luiz ends up fizzing the ball around Moreno to split Rincon and Caceres for Richarlison. This is where you end up seeing Firmino beginning to shift across Rosales, and Richarlison ends up flicking the ball to Firmino ahead of Rosales and Osorio, and at that moment, he should be playing Lodi in free down that left channel as he begins to run off Machis, but Firmino fails to control the ball under his feet, and by the time he's able to play that ball, that gap is closed, and he ends up laying off the ball back to Douglas Luiz. If we look to another example, it's Thiago Silva receiving the ball from Marquinhos, and you have Firmino between Rincon and Moreno, and Lodi beyond Machis, which forces Rosales to shift over. Firmino shifts forward to pull away Rincon, and Moreno instantly swarms Silva, who splits Rondon and Moreno to find Allan in midfield. While Allan is pressed in that midfield zone by Caceres, he does well to evade the Venezuelan midfielder's pressure to split Machis and Rincon for Firmino ahead of Rosales and Osorio. That's where he has the option to play in Lodi down the left channel or Richarlison behind the defense, but he opts to take 2 touches forward and fires a low shot on goal that's pushed away for a corner. If we look to one final example from that opening half, it's Thiago Silva sliding the ball to Lodi ahead of Machis, and that's where you see Machis backing off as Firmino darts into that right channel between Machis and Rosales to pull out the Venezuelan right back. You can also see Everton Ribeiro attempting to make an overlapping run down that left channel, which pulls out Rincon as he tries to apply pressure late towards the ball when Lodi is looking to deliver a ball into the box. If we assess Lodi's options, you have Richarlison running across both center backs and Gabriel Jesus peeling off Mago's shoulder, and that's where you see Jesus break across the Venezuelan left back to receive Lodi's cross at the back post, and he ends up nodding the ball through the 6-yard box into the path of Richarlison peeling off the 2 center backs, but when Richarlison receives that ball from point blank range, he ends up guiding it inches wide of the net. So as you could see, majority of Brazil's best moments were created down that left-hand side in the first half, so it was no surprise that we did see somewhat of a tactical tweak in the second half, as Paqueta did replace Douglas Luiz, who was on a yellow card, and although Brazil still attacked in a 3-2-5, their overall position was a 4-2-3-1. Paqueta offers more penetration, and we'll get to that example in a bit, and if you look up front, you had Everton Ribeiro in a narrow advanced position occupying Rosales, Firmino just in behind Gabriel Jesus, or Richarlison, depending on who was playing central, and you would see Lodi still pushing forward down that left-hand side. Initially, we witnessed Paqueta sliding the ball across Rincon and Caceres for Firmino between the lines. As Firmino turns to face towards goal, you could witness Caceres attempting to make a challenge, and you also see Gabriel Jesus breaking towards the box to run off Osario's shoulder. Firmino is able to split both Venezuelan center backs for Gabriel Jesus, but his pass is slightly overhit, and that ends up killing the play. Around the hour mark, you witness Richarlison receiving the ball in the right channel from Thiago Silva's split pass between Caceres and Soteldo, and that ends up pulling out Mago. When you look in the box, you have Firmino between both center backs and Gabriel Jesus running off Osario's shoulder. So as you can see here, the other key factor to the shift in system was that it allowed Brazil 2 attackers in the box, and Richarlison decides to pick out Gabriel Jesus peeling off Osorio, but the challenge from the Venezuelan center back offers enough pressure to throw off Gabriel Jesus as he nods a point-blank effort wide of the net. And if we look to the build-up to Firmino's winner, it's Paqueta splitting Rincon and Caceres to play in Everton Ribeiro down the right channel, and in the box you could see Firmino and Gabriel Jesus occupying Osorio and Gonzalez, with Lodi making a run into the box beyond Machis. Everton Ribeiro ends up clipping the ball over a pulled-out Angel to the back post, and you see Machis tracking Lodi into the box and Gabriel Jesus pulling away from Rodriguez into that zone, which ultimately creates a 2v1. When both players attack the ball with Machis, it's the Venezuelan that nods the ball into the path of an unmarked Firmino, as both Gonzalez and Osorio do shift towards the challenge, and that allows Firmino to tap in the effort from point-blank range. Hi everybody, thanks for watching, and subscribe here for your latest tactical analysis and daily commentary on the InnerViews show. And if that wasn't enough, don't forget you could find more organic, unfiltered soccer/football analysis on the InnerViews podcast, the best soccer/football podcast in the world, available on iTunes, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Spreaker, and any Android apps on your Android devices.